Oh, hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on episode 272. Oh, nice ring to that. I have Kattie Lail on the podcast. She is an addiction and wellness coach, supervisor at Face It Together. How are you today, my lady?
I am so good, and I'm so grateful to be here to join you for 272. I mean, that's a good solid number there.
Oh, you know what? It just rolls off the tongue. I like it.
Hmm.
Now, I have to say, you, uh, would it be fair to say your life is a contrast of like basically a juxtaposition of who you are today and what you were back when you were, how can I say, a mere whippersnapper, a youth, they would say. Would I be right in saying that?
Absolutely. It's even like I think about it all the time. It's like sometimes when I'm thinking about how things used to be for me, I'm like, was that actually my life? Or did I just make all these things up because it feels so distant from where I am currently?
Yeah, like spoiler alert, people. Yes, married, son, two Dalmatian dogs. Like that's
Great Danes.
Great Danes. Excuse me.
Yes.
That that's even worse because that is just like it's like what do you spend your money on? Just food,
Dog food. Yep.
endless amount. Yeah, like I have to ask now. 13-year-old you looking like, did you ever think for like if you look back at 13-year-old you and you today, could you actually see a path from you as a teenager to where you are today? Because Jesus, wow, you've gone on
Mm.
a journey and a half.
Hmm. Yeah. Gosh, so, just to give a little background on 13-year-old me, when I was 13, I was just almost like on the verge of becoming a meth addict. Both of my parents struggled with their own meth addictions. My life was crazy. That was about the time that I started, drinking and smoking pot, doing all of those things. And so, like, my big aspirations at that point is like, I just wanted to party. I just wanted to, like, forget about everything and just like be able to have fun. So like to think about like the trajectory that my life has taken
Mm.
and like how serious about like wellness and recovery and all of those things that I have become and like helping other people. Like I don't even think that they fit in the same book, if I if I was writing a book.
No, like because like this is the thing. Like you go, okay, 13, okay, like right, meth. Okay, these are two of the things that should not come into a 13-year-old sentence. Like, as well as sort of just like, okay, yeah, going out, having a good time with friends. Like, but when people in America go, yeah, party, yeah, you know what I mean? It has much more of a slight edge than let me just hang out in a friend's house and like, yeah, maybe have a drink or share a wine cooler, if you get what I mean.
Hmm. Yeah, no, partying for me was like going out and like finding whatever I could to forget about everything else in my life. So that started out as like a wine cooler or whatever you can get your hands on as a 13-year-old. And that quickly turned into, oh, here's some pot, let's smoke that. And that felt really good. And then, like I knew at that point both of my parents were, using meth and that was kind of like a thing. And so like that was like that next thing that I had on my list. I was like, that's the thing that's going to make everything better for me. That's the thing that's going to solve all of these problems that are going on in my head. And as it turned out, I was able to meet those aspirations and I found myself, by the time I was 15, I had a full-blown meth addiction, and I was using drugs intravenously at that time.
It's like going, okay, just a small 2-year jump from that. But how did you get introduced to meth in the first place?
So, like I said, both my parents had used meth. And so my mom, in the midst of her addiction, she was spending a lot of time leaving the house, and she would go, do whatever. And I had younger siblings, so I was often left home to care for them. And so I realized, like, maybe if I like hung out with my mom and partied and like made it more fun for her to be home, like that would be a way to solve this problem. So I kind of started drinking with her and smoking pot with her. And then, one night she was using in front of me, and I asked if I could also try some. And so the first time that I ever did meth, I was with my mom.
I'm just letting that moment sink in
Mm,
because, like, this is the thing.
yes.
Okay, like, and I have no idea what your relationship is with your mother right now and everything like that. But the whole thing, when you hear mother, father, it's basically it's the name of God to all children, if you get what I mean. They're meant to be that sort of positive guiding light more times than not to take you
Mm,
forward. But when your rationale is to like go, yeah, you know what? Let me drink with my mother so she can have a good time with us to then hang out with, and then like yeah, be your gateway to let's just say the higher echelons of drug taking. Say you kind of like oh wow. I say wow, and I'm not saying wow through judgment. It's just more sort of I'm a little bit shocked if you get what I mean. That's how it because not this is not what
mhm.
you call a typical beginning down this sort of path, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely isn't. I had a very unique experience in that. And like, there's so many complicated things that go along with that too. Like at the time, that was what I wanted,
Yeah.
but I also wasn't at an age where I was able to make the proper decision for myself,
Mm.
and so I think in her mind, she felt like it was like this inevitable thing, and I was either going to do it with her or I was going to do it elsewhere. And so she kind of caved, and it became this thing. But that one decision destroyed our relationship. She was in a really unhealthy place, and there was already a lot of trauma and resentments and things built up there.
Mm.
But I think it was like that one decision was like the one thing that ended up like putting this divide between us that I don't know that we'll ever be able to get past. Like she's still not in the best place ever. She struggles with a lot of mental health stuff. I'm not sure what her substance use looks like at this point, and I don't ask.
Mm-hmm.
We see each other pretty sporadically, but like there will always be that piece of me that holds on to that resentment, and I don't, you know, it just really changed the nature of our relationship.
Is it resentment for the simple fact that she should have been like protecting you from this sort of realm, or is it sort of resentment that it was a case of the only way she could be there for you was like, yeah, if it wasn't in this party mode, she couldn't be a mother to you, or she wasn't a mother to you whatsoever.
Mhm.
Which,
Yeah.
or was it
I
both?
think, and I even think the resentment is, you know, I remember when I was younger before things got so bad, and she was like that source of support and guidance for me.
Mm.
And so I feel like it was almost like for me, I continued to have that same like faith and that nature of that relationship where I really look to her for that like comfort, support, like those mothering feelings. And instead of getting that, or even like seeing my need for that, like we ended up in this like partying type relationship.
I see. Like because you remember a time before, like this sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing, which
Mm-hmm.
like being the oldest like sibling in the household. So, like, were you the only one who knew that time before, or did your other siblings also know that time before? Because it's a different social dynamic completely. If it's
Mm-hmm.
in the thick of it completely, or like
Mm-hmm.
you see the change and you go, oh,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good question. And people rarely like catch that. And that's something that my siblings and I talk about a lot because I'm 8 years older than my twin sisters, and I am 6 years older than my brother. And so by the time that they have any memories, my mom was already full like into her addiction.
Mm,
So they don't remember that time. So the nature of their relationship with her currently and the nature of mine is really different. Like for me, I feel like I held her to a higher standard because of the fact I remembered when she was more functioning and I remembered when she was there for me, whereas they didn't. So they have almost a more like sympathetic view of her situation, whereas I've always been a lot harder on her because I had these notions that she could get back to being that person that I remembered her being.
I would imagine that, and this is purely just, I sometimes see this in like people's life stories, especially when it comes to the sort of realm of addiction and everything like this,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it's like, yes, they've got main key responsibilities like kids, husband, wife, like all of this. They're like, and they've gone down this path, but they have a moment of sort of clarity when it's like, oh, damn. And it might be ever so brief, but if you're around it at the time when you see it, it's like, I can imagine that must be a little bit jarring because it's like, yes, you're still there, but the next day,
Mm-hmm.
the person's come back who's fallen to that level. I might be, correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's been a really interesting journey with my mom because like I used to get those moments of clarity with her, but I don't know if it's like because of the length of like the amount that she used or like the underlying like mental health issues, but she's never really like gotten back to that person that I remember her being. And so for me, it makes me wonder, was I just so young that I didn't understand who she was? Or like, did the drugs just take that part of her away so that now she is this other person? And that's where I need to find that acceptance, you know?
Mm,
So I don't know. And it's hard for me because she's never really taken accountability for like the things either, you know. She's never really like we've never really talked about it, so I don't even know like where she stands with like the decisions that she made, honestly.
yeah, that sort of place of not knowing. It is, it's a painful place to be because it's one of those things, right? Um, like, yeah, you can't like when it comes to the not knowing, and I've seen this with like, yeah, when one parent's left, and like, yeah, the kids there, it's like they don't know what the sort of key things are, and then there's this sort of realm of emphasis to put on yourself, if you get what I mean. Like, oh, was it
Mm-hmm.
me? If I was it these things I did, but you're never going to get that feedback from that person. So you kind of play this sort of, how can I say, this self-deprecating theme of torture on a regular basis, which you're kind of like, right, how is this going to end? How like am I going to get the answers? And the whole thing is, I think people need to sometimes realize you need to make peace with the fact that you may never get the answer. Um, it's not a case of the answer you want or need. You may never just get an answer, you know?
Mm. That is so very true. And that's taken a long time to sort through. Like, I think that, like, I spent a lot of years, like, after I kind of got to a better place or like I reached that point of maturity to like understand like all the implications of everything that happened during that part of my life, where I almost like tried to bully it out of her. Like, I wanted her to talk to me about it. Like, I wanted her to explain things. I wanted her to acknowledge things. Like, I wanted that from her so bad. And I was so mad for
Mm,
so long. But I did at some point during that, like I realized I'm torturing myself. Like this is something that I'm actually not going to get. Like I need to, if I want to have a relationship with her at all, like I have to accept her how she is now. Um, and and like anything that like happened back then, like I need to figure out a way to make peace with it myself. Like she's not going to be a part of that process.
mm, mm. I hear that. And like, yeah, it's one of these, like, it's a powerful moment when you can realize that, because I think it gives, how can I say, a newfound direction in a strength to, like, yeah, move forward.
Mhm.
Mm. Now, one of the things, like, which still, like, in your teenage years, let's just say, you, how can I say, like, you had a dalliance or two with the law. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, so it's been an interesting journey because I definitely, I got in trouble a
Yeah.
lot when I was younger. And when you're younger, it's like you end up going to the juvenile detention center, and it's like a short period of time, and you always see like the light at the end of the tunnel, and you always know like everybody's kind of advocating for you.
Mm.
And it's just like it was like always kind of like biding my time until I could get out and do what I wanted to do again. But when I was 19, I got big girl arrested for the first time.
Big girl arrested. It's like, oh, that Akon song got locked up. No. Yeah.
And it was funny because like that was so different for me than all of the other times that I got taken away, because you're uncertain,
Mm.
because you it's not the same nature of things. Like people aren't advocating for you anymore. People are looking at you in this light of like, now I'm a criminal.
Yeah.
And so I sat in jail for 5 months, not knowing what was going to happen, what my sentence was going to be, if I was going to get out, and when I did, like what that was going to look like. And that was really scary for me. But also that was like the first time that I'd had enough separation from like that lifestyle, and I'd been like scared enough to like kind of evaluate where things were at. And that was also the first time when I was like, okay, so like this is my mom, and this is like the person that I've idolized for so long. And like actually, she's not the person that I want to be. This isn't the life that I want for myself. Like that was a minute, that was like the chunk of time when I decided like I don't want to spend my life doing meth. Like I don't want to spend my life partying and just like trying to figure out how I'm going to stay high. Like I think I can do more. I think I can have a better life than this. But I had no idea how to do that. Like I had no actual life skills. I had no actual coping skills. And so I felt like I was just getting thrown to the wolves, but I had this like burning passion to be well.
So basically, well, let's just say, I did hear a small segment of like the podcast you did with D. Let's just say, yes, very interesting time in the prison yard. Let's just, yeah. But what?
And that was later on in my journey. That was my next situation in going to jail.
Oh,
So
I
this was
see.
my first one. This was young, innocent, not too much happening. But that was when I got to federal prison. That was when I really graduated.
So wait a second, like, because this is something I didn't get that, but okay, in my research. But you went to, okay, regular jail, and then
Mhm.
okay, federal prison. And like, this is the thing, as a person who sits here in the UK, like, okay, when I kind of look at the American criminal system, and this is purely from television, that's just like, right, yeah, like you've got, yeah, your like weekend lockup, your county, then like, yeah, regular prison, and then
Mhm.
like, yeah, when you like go federal, like depending how, what it is and how rich you are, it's either club fed or it's like,
Yeah.
it's like, wow. Like that, a scary big house. So were you in the scary big house?
I was in not quite like the scariest big house. Like I avoided probably the worst of it.
Okay.
Um, but I was in a minimum security. So it's like a federal prison camp
Oh,
is what is like the club fed kind of situation that you're
yeah.
thinking about, where there's, no walls and people get a lot of freedom. Um, and so my points were low enough that I could have went to one of those, but so um but there was a prison about 3 hours away from where I'm from. And so my husband could still come to visit me if I had went there. So that's where I chose to go. And so when I say minimum, it's such a broad range because there were people that were there for life for multiple murders. And there were people that were there for financial crimes. And so it was like such a wide array of people. And so it was a huge culture shock. But I did get to avoid like, so when people go to prison, if you don't get to self surrender, like you actually have to fly on Con Air, which is like a plane where you're like handcuffed and shackled and you're on there with like Lord knows who. And so when I was like waiting to get sentenced and like thinking about this Con Air and like hearing stories about it, I would literally wake up with nightmares because I don't like flying anyways. And so somehow I talked them into letting my husband drive me to prison. And I didn't have to ride on Con Air. So like I at least got to avoid that experience in my life.
Every time you see like the Nicolas Cage movie, like come on, getting a cold sweat. It's like, oh my lord, it's like, I just see the female equivalent. It's like, yeah, it's like what? Nah, I was defending my family and I accidentally killed someone. Oh, that's like, please get me on display. So, okay, like, what did you do? I have to ask, how did you get from like, yeah, going to prison the first time? Like, okay, no, 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 no. I'm like, I need to assess my life and like, yeah, like I see where one path is leading me and it's not where I want to be. To like be like, okay, federal prison. It's like, and like you were married at the time to the same fellow you're married to right now?
So yes, so there is a big chunk of time in here. So I'll try to kind of like walk you through. So when I went to jail when I was 19, like that first time I got arrested, like I did pretty well.
Yeah.
I was really committed to not using drugs, but what happened was I ended up with a guy who I'd known from using drugs, but he was, in trouble too. So he wanted to kind of clean up his life as well. And the thing about this guy was he was very charming, first of all. Like he made me feel very happy. So that was like a big draw for me. But also he knew how to like he came from a fully functioning family. So like he knew how to like manage his finances. He knew life skills. Like he knew how to do all these normal things that I didn't think I knew how to do. So I became so dependent on him like so quickly, just like that, because I had no idea how to like actually live life by myself. And so I thought that like being with him was the only way that I was going to be okay. So even though he really wanted to be sober when we got together, that was kind of like a roller coaster. And as soon as he would go back to using drugs, I would just jump on that bandwagon with him. Like I would try to keep him sober, try to keep him sober. But when I felt like I was losing him, I would just go back to using drugs. So we did that cycle for about 9 years.
Oh God.
So when I was 28, we'd both been doing pretty good for a few years. I had actually gotten my bachelor's degree. I was working with people with addictions at that point in time. And then we tried to have a kid. And so I wasn't able to have children. We worked with a fertility doctor for over a year. And then after all of that, like I was just feeling like broken. I was grieving. He was using again. He was cheating on me. Like it was just all of these things. So I'm like, I got to get out of here. I'm going to lose my mind. So I left and I finally got my own little apartment. I got my own little car. Like I was like kind of getting things together. But outside of him, I'd never like built any support. Like I never like, I didn't have any other people. And so I felt lonely. I felt broken. I was grieving. And so I did, I kind of just reverted back to what I knew to take away that pain. And I started using meth again.
Wow.
So it was at that point, I'm almost 30. Like I'm too old to be like living on people's couches and like doing that whole thing. And so I'm like, well, maybe I'll just sell a little bit of drugs and see if I can sustain myself that way.
Oh.
And so, about a month after I started selling drugs, I was getting my own condo, buying cars, like doing all this stuff, I had a lot of money. Like it went, I mean, I guess you could say it went really well or really bad, either way. And so about 6 months after I started using again, I got my door kicked in by the federal government for conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine.
Oh,
So how I ended up getting this federal charge is because of the amounts that I was selling. I was selling quite a bit, and being really foolish about the choices that I was making. And so I, yeah, it all happened really fast, I feel like.
yeah. The track "Blinded by the Light" comes to mind with regards to that. It's yeah, no, because wow, it's one of those things which people always forget. Like it is so easy to stumble. It's so easy to fall into
Mhm.
like things with like old patterns. Like look, like a decade, no sign of it. A decade of building
Mhm.
everything. A decade where you gain your degree. A decade where you're moving forward in a positive manner where you're looking to start a family. And yeah, okay, let's admit there was ups and downs, but life, there is always ups and downs. It's just,
Mhm.
it's part and parcel. It's just a case of sometimes people are on, more on a razor's edge than they want to be or they should be. But to fall off must be, how did you feel when like it was a case of like, okay, was it the moment when the feds came in through the door, or was it a case of when you were being charged and like going, was where was that moment of clarity?
It was definitely when I got like my official charges, like, because at first I didn't know, like, you kind of like when they first kick in your door, you're like, okay, this
Mm,
maybe won't be as bad, maybe I'll only do a year, like maybe whatever.
yeah.
But it was when I got my official charges and I was getting indicted on that. And I just really thought that that meant that just the next 10 years of my life were going to be me in prison. And so it was like, and so I went in after I got this indictment, and they ended up letting me out on pretrial release, to wait until I got sentenced. But it was then I was like, I cannot fuck this up. Like this is my opportunity, and if I'm going to salvage this in any at all way, I need to start doing something different because I cannot continue to live my life being scared. I can't continue to live my life like just trying to like hold on. Like I need to do some actual work here. Like I actually need to ask for some help and I need to do things differently. So it was like I was like legitly terrified of like what my future held and like, sacrificing everything because I think in my mind, like I knew I was going to get in trouble, but like I didn't think I was going to get in that much trouble.
Mm.
And so I just knew if there was any hope of redemption. So maybe my motives weren't so good right away. It was because like I was just scared. But once I really, it was like the thing I needed to like surrender and actually make the changes that needed to be made at that time.
Mm. So was this sort of, you mentioned redemption, was this sort of the first sort of real steps of finding yourself on the path to where you are today? Or did like was there other things which like dare I not ask right now, which took you down a slightly different path before you got to the path you're on today?
So this was definitely the beginning of that trajectory. So I had a year before I had to like actually go to prison from the time that they let me out. So, which is hell, by the
Yeah,
way.
right. Like, why is it hell? Like, please, like, you got a year
because
for that.
because so you have this year and
Uh-huh.
you're like, okay, I'm gonna build this great life. Like I'm gonna do good things. Like it's time for me to make these changes. So you're growing into this really amazing, healthy person. You find a job that you like, you meet and marry the guy that you're gonna end up having kids with someday. Like you do all these things, and then you have to go to court and get sentenced and walk away from it all. So yeah.
It it sounds a bit wow. No, when you put in that context, it sounds cruel in some respects because okay, by the time you start building, like yeah, you're like okay, you admit you got yeah, I fucked up, and I'm like yeah, I'm trying to get my life back on track, and especially if you are putting these positive moves in, to
Mhm.
know there is a hard deadline where that time's up, but not really kind of knowing how much time you're going to have before you can get back to that life again. Because
Mhm.
like when like okay, with drug charges, let's just say America's been known to be lenient and compassionate and like yes, not really sort of going down hard on anyone who is potentially dealing. Oh. That's,
Yes, well, that's definitely not the case. It is, and it is, it's funny because like I knew, so when you get sentenced in the federal system, they have like mandatory minimums and they have like sentencing guidelines.
yeah.
So like I knew these things, like I knew that there wasn't any wiggle room for like actually like what they could give me for time. But
Mm.
I had this like delusion in my head that like, because I've always believed that if you work really hard at something, you can make a difference. And so I worked really hard and it didn't make any difference. But it did actually make a difference. It made a difference in me.
Mm.
And like, and I was able to walk into prison and realize like, okay, so this is actually going to suck bad. Like this is going to be hard to be away from the people that I love in this life that I built and this life that I know that I get to return to. But this is also a time for me to invest in myself and become the person that I want to be. So I looked at that time as almost an investment. And so, you can go to prison and you can just like merge into the prison lifestyle, which a lot of people do, and then it's not so hard to be there because you're just doing what everybody else is doing. Or you can go to prison and you can try to become a better person, which is like less of the population. And then you don't really fit in there, but you do meet some really amazing people. But it was a challenge.
No, but like this is the thing. That's a like a sort of key important point. There's a couple of points I might want to touch on,
Mhm.
but like the key important point is yeah, people who go to like that type of federal prison and they roll with that lifestyle, they go into it and like they like yeah, in some respects to survive, and I can understand that completely. And sometimes just to basically, that's the only way they can deal with it. But
Mhm.
it's a bit like a line from Shawshank Redemption, like where it's like, yeah, like the walls, like at the beginning, it's like it feels oppressive and keeping you in, but all of a sudden, at some point, it turns into this sort of bizarre realm of comfort. And when you're on the outside, you tend to suffer more because you've lived a life in that environment and trying to like switch back out
Mm.
is incredibly hard. But you can't like, but when you're in prison, you're being kept there. When you're in the real world, nothing's keeping you there, but there are definitely, if you've got, depending on what you've got on your record, it's damn sight easier to go back into prison and then go back into that lifestyle. To go
Mm.
buck against the trend and go, no, this is my time to improve myself. This is my time to like work out some way to grow. It's definitely saying, no, this is not normal for me. I do not want to return to here. I want to make something of myself when I get out of here. It's a way of I see it as looking hopefully to the future, and you still have a bright future. Like I don't like I've said a lot. I don't know how you see it. If that was the way you saw it, or if it's some way you like was it slightly different for you?
It was that was pretty accurate, like I think that my time in prison would have been a lot easier if I would have like conformed and just kind of like went with what it was. But because I was trying to like hold on to everything outside and like build myself into this person that was going to like integrate really well into my life when I left, it was difficult, like because I didn't fit in. So that was like a big piece of it. I felt really isolated a lot. Like I remember, and I met some really great ladies there that were on the same path that I was. And so I remember when one of those girls left and she was kind of like the last one to leave from that group that was supporting me. And I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I don't fit in here. She's like, you don't want to fit in prison. Like, you don't want to. And I was like, yes, okay, let me hold on to that. Let me really hold on to that. And I did. I held on to that whenever things got tough. And my husband was amazing. I did 3 years in prison, and he came to visit me every weekend. Like he would get off work on Friday, Saturday morning, he would get up and drive the 3 hours to come and visit me, stay the night, and then drive back Sunday after visitation on Sunday. And he did that every day for every weekend for 3 years. Minus a few weekends where he went maybe fishing or actually like did something for himself. But like it was incredible, actually.
God damn. So no, like this is the thing. Like this, like like to have, well, that is definitely something special right there for your, like for any human being. It's like, yeah, bam, love you, found you, this is a thing. Oh yeah, by the way, in 9 months time, I've got to report to court and like go over the prison. If you don't mind, could you drive me so I don't have to go on Con Air? That's one thing. It's like and like for him to go, you know what, I'm down, baby girl, you know what, yeah, don't worry, like I will visit you more or less every damn weekend I can for 3 years. Like, yeah, there might be occasions where it's like, yeah, okay, I might be out with the boys having a few drinks and watching the game, but that's every other weekend. But like maybe 2 or 3 out of that 3 years. You know what? That's something special to hold on to. And yeah, that is amazing. But like, it's also amazing that you did find a support group within prison to that were not on that page of we got to live this like prison life. We like there was something better out there. So like when you got out of prison, you were like you're out in the real world, and let's just say what like there's part of me which wants to say, so what did you like, what was your first port of call? What was the first thing you wanted to do, like when you got out? What was that? And like, hey, like if it involves your husband, keep it PG. Well,
and the funny thing is like, I mean, I'm sorry, babe. Like it wasn't even like sex or whatever. It was like, give me some good food. Like, what? Can we stop somewhere and eat?
It's like there's a Friendly's up the road. I need some ice cream.
I mean, and the food, it's just like the monotony of the food, because every Monday you eat the same thing, every Tuesday is chicken, every Wednesday is hamburgers, it's like the same thing over and over and over again. So like I was like, I'd make lists of like what I wanted to eat when I got out. So that was like the first thing on my agenda. So
kind of, I'll kill for a chicken sandwich. God's like, what? No. So,
right, yeah.
So okay, food. Like, you know what I mean? I'm glad to see you're on like the typical page of most ladies I know in the world. Yeah, what do you want to do right now? Oh, I'm hungry. There you go. Yeah. It's like, yeah. It's like, yeah, don't feed me. It's gonna get nasty. Okay. What do you eat from my plate? You don't need these fries. So,
yep.
so I have to ask now, when did you sort of get on the path of counseling? Was it something you discovered it in prison, or was it a case of like counseling slash coaching? Was it something you discovered after? And if it was after prison, how long did it take you to find it?
Yeah, so it's really an interesting story for me because I think maybe when I started getting on this path, it wasn't for the right reasons.
Mhm.
So I actually got my bachelor's before I had my like my relapse where I kind of went back into everything.
Yeah.
And I got my bachelor's in human services with a minor in addiction studies. And so it was after that that I first worked with people with addictions as a counselor. Um, but the reason that I started going to school for that and wanted to do that profession is because I thought that if I learned enough about it and I did enough with it, that I would be okay. So it was like almost like a self-preservation thing.
Yep.
Like if I learned enough about it, I didn't actually have to do like the personal work to make myself better. So I got arrested. And when I got arrested and, I went through prison, that was when I was like, I actually need to do this work because like just helping other people isn't going to save me. I need to do my own work. So I did my own work. I got out of prison. It was a couple years after I got out before I felt like I was in a place where I'm like, my passion is actually helping people. This is what I do well. I connect well with people. I find joy and purpose from serving people in this manner. And that was when I was like, okay, so I think I'm ready to start looking for a job where I'm actually helping people because I think that I am in a good enough place. Like if I'm looking at this like from a place of humility, like I'm not just like kind of like having a big head, like I've done the work, I'm ready. So I started looking for a job and I had a lot of doors slammed in my face because I'm a felon, you know? And so I was getting really discouraged. And I just like, this is what I want to do. Like, there's nothing else that like has brought me joy. And I can't really like put my finger on anything else that would. And so that was actually when I ran across the ad for the job posting for where I work now, which is Face It Together. And it was for this thing that I hadn't even heard of before. So it's peer recovery coaching. And so I was reading the job and I was like, this has to be a joke. Like this actually sounds too good to be true. Like I feel like I don't know what their angle is, but I feel like it's a scam, but I'm just gonna fill out the application. It's fine.
Yeah.
So I just remember they ended up like reaching out to me and getting a hold of me. And it was the first time, like, at this time I've had like enough doors slammed in my face. I'm like, I'm just going to own it. I'm just going to put it all out there. If they say yes, they say yes. If they say no, they say no, but I can't control that. So I'm telling them about prison and my past and everything. And it was just a really like surreal experience because like, instead of being like, oh, we're not interested, they were like, you're going to change a lot of lives. Like you have such an amazing story and you are going to be able to reach so many people because of your story. And like that was during my interview. And in my mind, I'm like, if I don't get this job, like I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be okay. Like I feel like this is where I need to be. And I ended up getting the job, but like it was just such a cool, and it was a shift, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like I'd done the counseling thing, I was open to that, but the coaching thing has been such a better fit for me personally. So
That, because like this is the thing. One of the things I sometimes don't get about society, like especially when it comes to okay, yeah, you send someone to prison, they paid their time, like you know what I mean. But it's like this, like okay, there are some crimes which I was just like go, no, 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 no,
mhm,
just like
mhm,
no, you you have done evil in this world, and no, it's
mhm.
unforgivable, in my opinion. But like the whole thing is like sort of like, yes, there are crimes people commit, and you're like, oh, right, you've paid your time to society, but they put this scarlet letter on you forever and a day, making it ever so easy to just basically send you back to that system again and again and again. And like you got fortunate to basically, yeah, get into Face It Together, where like, yeah, you're working hard to help people get out of that. Like, do you like in Face It Together, do you find there are like you sometimes come across some people whose lives mirror your own sort of journey?
Yeah, I since I've been here, I haven't worked with anybody yet that's been to federal prison. And, I think that what we're hoping to do is catch people before they get to that point, like offer that support, offer that like guidance without like the stigma that goes along with some of the other like resources. And so really just being a positive support person. So I have like, it's funny because almost every person that I've worked with, like I can relate to them on some level. Like
Mm.
because I have my own personal story and journey with addiction, like I just am able to connect with them on such a deep level often. And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. Like I remember what that feels like. Let me share this with them so that they know that it's not just them. This doesn't make them a bad person. This doesn't make them crazy. This doesn't make them like, doomed for failure. There's other options. We can like this is a part of addiction. We can help you with that.
Yeah, I think quite often people think they are like facing the cold alone.
Mm,
And it's so easy for people to drift into that because don't get me wrong, like some of the things which we go through as individuals are uh painful, horrific, and horrid. Like there's the other side of that where it's joyful happiness and like blissful. But when we're on that island by ourselves, like yeah, facing the storm of life, uh, it is very hard for sometimes people to like, oh yeah, you know what? I need help. Yeah, you
mhm,
know what? I am alone. Yeah, you know what? I'm finding it hard. And to simply go, help, give me a hand.
mm,
Yeah, so hard. Uh,
mhm,
but you're working on basically going, yeah, you know what? I see you, I hear you. I can give you that
mhm.
helping hand through this storm. Face it together. Like when you're not an individual, you're like a penguin facing the storm all together, huddled. You know what I mean? I'll take the
Mhm,
win this time, so you don't
mhm.
have to.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny because people come in and they don't really know, in art, peer coaching is like kind of like finding its footing, and especially in like larger or more populated areas. But in South Dakota, we're a more rural area. So, we're kind of just getting some footing here and people are starting to understand it better. But I think a lot of people walk in the door and they don't know what to expect. I think that they think that somebody's going to shame them, that somebody is going to judge them, that somebody's going to like give them this unreasonable list of tasks that they need to do in order to be well.
Hmm.
But I find people coming in a lot of time and they're just like, you know, just they've been facing the storm by themselves for so long and they're worn down, they're lacking hope, and they are full of just shame, like addiction comes with shame just because of like the societal messages that we get about people with addictions. And so they come in for the first times and they unload that. And then I'm able to support them and walk with them on their journey. And within a few times that they were coming in, like I can guarantee that the people down the hallway are like, shut up, quit laughing.
Hmm.
Because they, just having that support and they open up and they laugh and they are just these amazing and beautiful people. Just so to just see them come from this place where like they don't see that in themselves to like just this person that's shining. Like it's just really amazing, honestly.
Hmm. Like I can only imagine with regards to how long that sort of like takes for that breakthrough to like come through for these people. Like because look, it's one of those things where okay, yeah, it 10 years, like it took okay, 10 years or where it was like a cycle of wasn't the best. After that
Mhm.
sort of 10 years, like yeah, going to prison for yourself. Like in between being arrested and prison, like finding the love of your life and like you know what I mean, then serving those 3 years. Like
Mhm.
so all in all about 14-year journey to like redemption and to
Mhm.
like go right for people to come on to what you do, like
Mhm.
to like if someone comes in like I expect a breakthrough today, tomorrow, a month from now. Like, you know what I mean? When they look to you and go, yeah, it might take you 14 years to get there. It might take you longer to get there. But like the whole thing is, I would still look to you and go, yeah, that you are a shining example of hope for
Mhm.
that situation, because to go through a toxic relationship for that 10 years, so then that fall apart, and then basically you going to like going through all of that, and to sit there today like going, hey, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I own two Great Danes. Yes. It's like yeah, you like, you know what I mean? You're like the very sort of definition of a soccer mom, you know?
True story these days. It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy to even think about.
Yeah. You know what I mean? That is, yeah, I can't see how that isn't a story of hope. I can't even, like, you know what I mean? That a story of redemption, of going forward and doing the right, like to say, to simply go doing the right thing. No, to go down that hard path to like, yeah, you like you deceived yourself until you actually looked at yourself and really sort of like, wait a second.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
I'm like, stop fooling yourself, stop kidding yourself, and this is who, like, yeah, and just start to discover who you are. It's a hell of a journey.
Yeah. Well, thanks for saying that, and like as you were saying that, it's like don't let the stigma of addiction define who you are.
Mm,
Because I think that it took me realizing that I could be this amazing person in order to like actually invest that time into myself. For me, that was being scared straight, but like, what if I would have had somebody like me there telling me like, you are amazing, like you could actually do this, like how much different might my journey have been if I would have had, the support that I provide for other people.
mm. Yeah, some people like go, but you may have delayed your rock bottom. I don't. I think rock bottom is a bit of a myth. It's a case of like, yeah, it's a case of real like self realization. Most people have this discovery of self realization when they quote unquote have rock bottom. But until
Mhm.
so, if they can have this realization a lot sooner, if someone goes, hey, this, and you're like, oh, wait a second. that's that's my moment of clarity right there. That's my moment
Mhm.
of realization, and I can turn things around at at this point in my life rather than
Mhm.
let it all go to hell, if you get what I mean.
Mhm. Exactly. Because I feel like my rock bottom could have been that time when I got arrested when I was 19. If
Mm,
I would have had the appropriate resources and support that I could have latched onto to help me get to where I wanted to be,
yeah,
rather than like latching onto this unhealthy relationship that I, continued to engage in for so long. Um, so yeah, I also think that that rock bottom is a myth. I think that we can raise the bottom. We can meet people where they're at, and because kind of the nature of addiction is like it's not fun after a while. People don't want to continue to use. It loses the joy, and when we can find those people that are ready to make the change, without them having to reach the depths.
mm. Yeah, well, like this is the thing. I wait, like one of the ways I sometimes look at addiction, it is the empty calories of life. It just you keep on consuming, and you don't realize it because at the like yeah, empty calories in the beginning. Like this is the thing, and this is the dark truth of it. It's fun in the beginning. It's like, yeah, you're going with it, and like, yeah, it's like woohoo. But there is a point in life where I would say everyone realizes it. They might
Mm.
not be honest with themselves, but everyone realizes it. It might be like, yeah, it might be, yes, doing drugs. It might be like fluttering to one relationship to another. It might be a case of, yes, just going out, just partying and or just like, yeah, but there's a realization, not like not really in your face, but deep down, you kind of like,
Mhm.
oh, this isn't right. This is not where I want to be, if you get what I mean.
It's no longer filling that hole.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, now this is the thing. I like with regards to the sort of life experience and like, yeah, working together with Face It Together. Now, uh, there are gonna like there's gonna be a time in the future where your kid's gonna be like, yeah, hey, this, that, the other.
Mhm.
And like, will you like will you sugarcoat it a little, or will you give it to him like raw? This is what like life was like for me when I was growing up.
I've thought about it and talked about it a lot with my husband, and I think like we always want to be honest with him. Like I want to be um as forthcoming as like age appropriate, you know. So I don't want to like traumatize him by like telling him these stories when he's not old enough to understand. And I think that there's details that he'll never need to know. But I think also like the most important thing is like I never had those examples to teach me coping skills. I've never had the examples to teach me like other ways to like manage stress in life. So like I want to like instill like almost a sense of like recovery in him without him ever have like used any substances. So I just want to start young and like help him be as emotionally intelligent as he can be and like just raising him like that. Um so that when he is confronted with, you know, these choices, he has the ability to make healthy choices. And that's not going to say that he's always going to make the right ones, you know, but I do want him also to be aware that because I struggled with addiction and because his you know, it kind of runs like in those genetic things, like that genetic predisposition, that if he does decide to use, that there is a better chance that he would, you know, struggle with addiction as to somebody who didn't have that genetic predisposition. And so I just want him to be able to make strong, good choices in regards to that.
No, I hear you. And like this is the thing. I think yes. Both you and your husband are like, hey, like, put that
Yeah.
down. This
Yeah.
this is the reality of like where it can take you,
Mhm.
and what can happen.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
like, now this is the thing. Now, with where you've come from and where you've like where your past, your present, what does the future look like? What does your journey over the next few years? Where would you like that to potentially go?
Mm. Great question. So well, I've had a little surprise, and so I'm going to have a little break in things because I'm having a second kid here in January.
Oh,
So
brilliant. Hey.
I'll take a few month pause.
Hey.
But so I'm actually like currently I'm going to grad school. I'm working on my master's in clinical mental health counseling. Um, and the main reason is from the work that I'm doing currently, like what I see is I just see like this like interconnection between trauma and addiction. So whether it was trauma that led somebody to addiction or trauma as a result of somebody's addiction, they go hand in hand so much from my view, you know, of things. And so I want to be able to really work with people on both. And so what I was finding is people that were coming in with these massive amounts of trauma, I wasn't able to help them as much as I would like to.
Yeah.
And not that I couldn't refer them to somebody that could, but I really just want to take a deeper look at like how all of that like intertwines and being able to help people just on a deeper level kind of like process through and separate the addiction and the trauma and you know heal in a deeper way. So I think that's what my future holds. I don't know, you know, what that looks like or how that plays out, but I know that like now I'm just trying to like cram all the knowledge into my head, the knowledge and the skills, so I can carry that out into the world.
Mm, interesting. Okay, I'm sure you'll like figure it out and like come to a useful conclusion one way or the other. All right.
Yeah.
no, I have to ask, like, yeah, I've got a couple more questions. Yeah,
Yeah.
but like, yeah, what, like, if you could say something to your younger self to sort of inspire them, there is a better tomorrow for that, like for your younger self,
Mm.
what do you think that would be? What would you say?
I don't even know that I would need to tell them that there would be a better tomorrow. I think the message that I would want to say is I would want to say, okay, there are some shitty people in your life that are never going to love you, no matter how much you try to make them. But there are some really amazing people that are actually trying to love you right now. And it's not scary. Just rely on those people. You don't have to, keep chasing love from places you're never going to get it. Um, I think that would be the most important message that I could have given myself.
Mm. You are enough in your life. You are enough to basically build something special. You are enough to be
Mm-hmm.
worthy of a great life, which
Mm-hmm.
you are laying down with your husband, your boy, your two dogs, and the little one to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, you well, welcome back to disrupted sleep patterns. It's like,
I don't even want to talk about it. My we just got back to normal life here.
I feel your, well, look, put it this way, I feel your future pain. Like,
Yeah.
in my current life right now. Just say,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, just
How old? How old?
6 weeks today.
Oh yeah, so you are in the thick of
Oh,
it.
help me.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's just say that. Help me.
I'll be looking for your SOS.
That's like, yeah, be careful. I might be in South Dakota. Just like, hey, how you doing, guy? It's like, what are you doing there? Just hiding.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. Now, oh, dear me. Now, have to stretch, have to reveal to you that, yeah, I am a being of infinite power. And I can give you one wish and one wish alone. Before you even start, look, I see the mischief in your eyes. So there, no wishing for infinite wishes. Yeah,
Oh,
no writing stuff down on a piece of paper. I wish everything on this piece of paper comes true. Nah. And yeah, and like, yes, you can't wish for COVID to go away or world peace. Look, I had to draw on the powers of Beyonce and Dolly Parton just to get a vaccine out there, and not everyone wants to take it. It's hard life. It's like, look, it's like, yeah. Now COVID's gone away. Look, don't make me draw on those dark powers once more. Now, what would your one wish be?
that is such a difficult question because, I think for a long time it would have been that I would have had the opportunity to go back and do things differently. But I think that if I would have, I wouldn't have become the person that I am today. I think it really took going through everything that I've been through. Um, I think that if there was one thing that I could wish for is I wish that, how do I even phrase that? I wish that everybody in the world was able to feel and express love as authentically as we should be able to. I think that there's been so much trauma and so many things that have happened that people have lost kind of touch with, like just that love, and I just feel like how beautiful would life be if we could all kind of connect with that on a little bit deeper of a level.
Yeah, like this. Yeah, I'll see what I can do about that. The only thing, like when we talk about authentic, like, yeah, the difficult thing about people being their truly authentic self, it's one of those things where there is a certain level of self-reflection what needs to be done to do this. And as much as I can go, yeah, I would say I know myself around about maybe 50% of my potential and what I can be. Like, and I think most people know themselves between 40 and 50%. Like people who really sort of don't want to know, 20%. People who like anyone who can go, I know myself 100%. Yeah, like all I've got to say is, yeah, those like, yeah, you got to be. It's not a case of be careful with those people. It's a case of they've like seen themselves in the lightest of light and they've seen themselves in the darkest of dark. And as much as it can be beautiful, it is ugly. And there, like sometimes it's like, yeah, a noble steed or a horrid creature. And to get to that point, it is a very difficult, sometimes painful journey of self-realization, which many people fail to do.
So yeah, like accepting that good
Oh yeah,
and the bad, like all of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And like this is the thing, I would say you have a greater insight than most about how far you've gone and how far you can like where you can reach in within your life, which you know what I mean. It don't tell it came with a cost, a hefty cost, but you know what I mean. Like if you were if you could erase those, yeah, Katie, you wouldn't be the person you are today. And like this is the thing. And I sit here with this conversation, go, yeah, you're a wonderful person today. It may have taken a painful journey to get here, and it may have like taken a toll, but yes, the person you are today is the person what needed to be here and the person who can help many other, I would say.
Yeah. Thank you.
No,
Thank you.
no, it's the truth. It's the truth. Like, yeah, I have no more questions to ask, but like, can you tell the lovely people out there how they can find you out on the interwebs?
Yes. So we're really easy to find. Our website is wefaceit.together.org. And so we have a beautiful website. Not only do we have just a lot of resources, we have a lot of information about what we do, a lot of data about what we do. And we also have, it's really easy to get in touch with us too. So, you know, not only do we provide coaching for people who themselves struggle with addiction, we also provide coaching for people who have loved ones who struggle with addiction, because we know that addiction can have just as much toll on the people that you love. And the people that you love don't always have the same amount of support. So, you know, if you have a loved one who's struggling with addiction and you just need support, we're the place for them as well. So if you go to our website, up in the top right corner, there's a get started button. You just fill out the form and somebody will reach out to you, usually within 24 hours, and super simple process. We're always happy to welcome people in and just see what we can do to serve you.
Brilliant, brilliant. Katie, a pleasure having you on today. Yes, I got to give special thanks out to Dee, who, like, yes, brought us together. Yes, he's a crazy bandit. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Another person I'm super grateful I got the chance to meet, for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like, oh wow. It's like tell you a story or two. Oh my Lord. Have 2 parts of the podcast. Yes, that's true. I like to say thank you to you, my friends, my life warriors, for sticking with us to this very end. Please stay well, stay safe, be awesome, be excellent, be fantastic. Be all the positive bees you can be in this world, and then some. And remember, keep moving forward. Peace. And we are.